Hi everybody, today we are going to explore the second part of the 33-1 notes, so week 2, day 2, and this is going to talk a little bit more about prisms and pyramids and specifically start focusing on cross sections. Now you're going to notice up at the top of the page a link, and what I want you guys to do right now is to pause the video, click on the link, and play around a little bit with the prism and pyramid cross sections that you're seeing in there. So what you're going to do is you click on the link or type in the link, and you're going to see this interactive cross section flyer here. And what you're going to do is you are going to look over here on the left hand side. You're going to play around with the prism and the pyramid selections, and with that you can change the number of faces your prism or pyramid have on their bases. You can move this slice up and down to see what two-dimensional shape it's forming on the right-hand side up here. And then most importantly, what you could do is you can change this slice. So notice about halfway through, you're going to be seeing this slice one way versus if you take the slice and move it another way. So just pause the video, play around again with the pyramid and the prism cross sections for a little bit, see what you're noticing. Now looking back at the notes, we're going to kind of flip between here. One thing you're going to notice is that we see this vocabulary word here, cross section. And what a cross section is basically it's cutting through our plane, and it's the intersection in our solid, and it's kind of creating here a two-dimensional shape. So now notice there's a difference between a vertical cross section, which is going to be a cross section that is going up and down through our figure, versus a horizontal cross section that's kind of cutting through left and right in our figure. So notice again the object that it's being sliced and the shape it's making inside. So notice this would be an example of a cross section versus this figure here. You can't see all of it. That's being created as two-dimensional shape, in this case a rectangle and a circle. Now we can go back to that figure that we were looking at before to help us talk about this as well. Notice how I have the picture now in this particular prism. We have a vertical cross section, so it's going up and down, follow my cursor, versus if we change this slice back to here where it's centered there, it's a horizontal cross section, versus again if we move it over here we see another vertical going up and down. So we'll leave it at the horizontal cross section at the moment. Now again, going back to the notes, it says the next piece of this is to look at our Springboard book on page 483 to read the definition of the cross section. So you're definitely going to probably want to write that down right here. But what you're going to notice is if you open up your book, I have my book open here, it says a cross section of a solid figure is the intersection of that figure and a plane. Okay, so we see again, cross sections can kind of happen throughout. So this is an example of a cross section down at the bottom of our figure versus also a cross section here inside of the figure. You can pretty much slice these figures anywhere. Now 12a says describe the two-dimensional shape, flat such as a circle, triangle, rectangle, square, any polygon really, of a cross section that is parallel to the base of a prism. So we're going to go back again to this example here. So notice we have a prism, and if we have a horizontal parallel to the base cross section like we have in the picture now, notice the shape that is being made here is a pentagon. Okay, and if we change this, let's add some more sides in here, or take away sides. Maybe we have 3 sides now of our prism. Notice each time, no matter if we're moving it up or down, every single time we are creating that same shape right here, right? Depending on how many sides it is, you know, we have a triangle, a pentagon, octagon, heptagon, hexagon. You see it all the way through. So what we can say here is that the cross section each time is going to be congruent to whatever the base is. And again, one way of thinking about this is that parallel cross sections are always the shape of the base. Make that a little smaller, easier. That's kind of our trick for those. Now, if we look at it perpendicular, so again, going back here, I'm going to move this slice so that it's moving perpendicular, excuse me. And if we move the slice, notice no matter where we're slicing it at on here, right, what we notice, we could turn it around a little bit as well here too. If we slice this perpendicular to the base, and over here even perpendicular to the base, notice the shape that we are constantly making. Okay, no matter where we're moving this shape always ends up being a rectangle. So that's kind of the next piece of this. So if we kind of can duplicate this, clone it, it's really similar except for the cross section for all of these in the prism is a rectangle. And the perpendicular cross sections are always the shape of the faces. So in this case, our faces, no matter how many sides our polygon has, again, we can change around the number of sides. Notice these faces along the side are always rectangles, so that's going to be the shape of our faces. Okay, so down at the bottom, right, notice now we're going to be talking about writing through using a pyramid. So we're going to talk about a pyramid now. And what we want to do is, based on where we're slicing the pyramid, we want to say, okay, what is this representing? Is it representing a parallel horizontal cross section, or is it representing a perpendicular vertical cross section in our pyramid? And is it going through the vertex of the pyramid or not? So we're going to go back to this handy dandy display, and we're going to click on pyramid. Okay, and notice the shape that we want to create first in our notes is a hexagon. So let's move this. We're going to make a hexagonal pyramid. And what you notice is, as we cut this thing parallel, we are creating that hexagonal shape, right? Versus if we start slicing perpendicular, and depending on where this is at, notice through our vertex, we are creating this triangle, okay? Versus if we try to slice this somewhere else, now we're creating, it looks like each time we scrub a little bit, a trapezoid of sorts, okay? So if we go back here and we start talking about these here, notice this first one is going to be created when we were parallel to the base, okay? It's the shape of our base. It was a hexagon, so shape of the base. Versus the second one we talked about happened when it was perpendicular, but notice it was perpendicular and not through the vertex, right? The peak of our pyramid. Okay, now again, this one here is when it was parallel to our base. This next one was when it was perpendicular, but this time it was when it was through the vertex that we were able to get that triangle shape. And then last but not least, another, trapezoid. It's perpendicular and again, not through the base, through the vertex. And again, reminder, the vertex of our pyramids are this peak point here. And you're going to have a trapezoid if you're not through the vertex, versus if you are through the vertex, you'll see that triangular shape. Okay. Now on the back of your notes, if you flip that over, all right, notice here they want us to describe the cross section when we're parallel to the base. Okay, so take a moment and answer first off, what kind of shape is it going to have if it's parallel to the base? reminder that it's always going to be the shape of your base, right? The two-dimensional shape of that base. So take a moment, pause the video on your own, try A, B, and C, and see what you get as your answers, and we'll go over them in just a second. All right, so to check your work here, all right, what we're looking for our shapes at the base, this first one, notice we have a triangular prism. So if it's a triangular prism, notice our triangle bases there, here and here, so we have our triangle bases. Then notice that means if it's a triangular prism that our cross sections parallel have to be triangles. For the next one, we are going to have rectangular prism, so our bases are going to be rectangle. And last but not least, we have a pentagonal pyramid, excuse me. So we have a pentagon as our cross section for the base, because again, it's the same shape of the base. Now, a reminder as we move on to example 2 with our perpendicular to the base, okay, notice through the vertex is key here. What shape are we going to create in each of these pyramids? Well, take a minute on your own to pause and guess. Okay, welcome back. But reminder, going back here, if we're talking about these lateral faces, whether we have 4 or we have 5, if we are cross-section through the base on these, or excuse me, through the vertex on these, again, it is the whole base, the whole vertical shape of these, because again, you're through the vertex. So both of these are going to be triangles when we go through that vertex here. So triangle and a triangle. So angles for both of those. Okay, so triangle would be the shape there. All right. Next one. Now we need to be descriptive in this, in what we're saying. And notice in these particular cross sections that are going through, take a moment again, pause the video, try out on your own what you think they are. Okay, now checking your answers. The first one we're going to have, we're going to have a rectangle on this first one as we slice through. Again, think about what shape is being created here. It's a rectangle. In letter B, we're allowed to be a little more specific. This one's going to be a square because they're telling us that these are congruent all the way around here. So notice they told us these congruent pieces, so we're able to officially say that that is a square. And then this last one, they did not give us information like they did in part B. So again, our best name on this particular one is going to be, again, rectangle. Okay. Last but not least, a plane cuts a right octagonal pyramid perpendicular to its base through its vertex. So let's take a moment as we're reading through this to underline some key information. We have a pyramid perpendicular through the vertex. Okay, so a couple things here. Pyramids, we know that if you are perpendicular, you're either going to be a triangle or a trapezoid, like we talked about on the bottom of this page. It's kind of our two options for perpendicular. Notice here, here, and here. Okay, now through the vertex, though, is the other key word here, because the cross section when it's through the vertex has to be a triangle. If it was not through the vertex, that's when it would have been the trapezoid. Okay, last but not least, another good link to talk about here is these Khan Academy videos at the bottom. So feel free to highlight and visit this Khan Academy site. I'm going to actually look at it on here. So I can actually click on it like you guys have, copy and paste here. And what this allows us to do is, if you are interested in visiting this particular website, you're not hurting my feelings by watching other videos. But the great thing about the Khan Academy website is it walks you through a couple more tutorial videos if you're still struggling with this, and it can give you some basic practice if you want, if it can load, in practicing, again, slicing these rectangular pieces and things like that. So you have some practice options over on the side here as well. Mine's not loading at the moment, but you can watch the video and then just kind of play through and see. It's always another great option. And last but not least, next time you go and think of cross section, think about cutting a cake, right? What kind of shape are you making? If you're cutting up a sandwich, what kind of shape are you making as you cut it and break it apart, right? Those are cross sections, geometries everywhere. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.